Good evening. Today is Monday, August 16, 2021. It is 7:01 p.m. and I will call the Cascade Charter Township Planning Commission meeting to order at this time and record tonight's attendance. Member Nordyke is excused this evening, so he is not here. And members Merlin and Korstage have not yet arrived. I always question if they previously told me they wouldn't be here, but at the moment I don't see a note to myself that either of them is excused. So at the moment I would say I'm guessing they'll arrive shortly. But with that, we do have a quorum, so we will get started and move on to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much for that. With that, I would ask if we have a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
So move.
Support.
Thank you, Member Merlin, or excuse me, Member Moxley and Member Deering for the motion to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Does anybody have a conflict of interest they wish to disclose at this time for Article 4? I don't. Nothing of interest anyways. Okay, sorry, spoke of humor. Article 5, approve the minutes of the August 2nd, 2021 meeting. I know I have a few items that I'd like to bring up, but I'll let you guys go first if you have any suggestions about corrections. Okay, on page 5, under Article 10, it says, Chair Rizzi spoke in detail with the Building Department Director Brian Wilson about state building code and how it pertains to township building codes. The township relies on state code. This is the third line of that paragraph. And then it says, unless there is a sidewalk. I think that should be struck. I don't, if that's what I'm not sure that that's what I said, but we rely on state code. It doesn't matter if there's a sidewalk there or not. Would you agree that? And perhaps I confused some people, but I'm guessing since later it references unless there's a sidewalk in another paragraph, I'm guessing that when these were typed, somebody just cut and paste something wrong. But I would like to have, unless there is a sidewalk removed, because if you read the whole context of this paragraph, it makes it very confusing. And then that same paragraph, the 7th line down, it says 36 inch of it says barrier, it should be wall. Because there is no barrier there. We're talking about a retaining wall. And then I think there was another item here. Since I'm on a roll, I don't normally proofread things. Page 6, the very bottom line. It says he is close friends with Mr. and Mrs. Grunke. I believe it's Grunsky with an S, if I'm not mistaken. And then on page 7, Article 11, I believe it is the 7th line down. 6th line down. It says at the way that cul-de-sac was built. And then again, there's an extra phrase in here. It says at the south end of the cul-de-sac. I think that should be struck because there is, I guess there is a south side of the cul-de-sac, but that's, again, it's not, it causes confusion there. It just shouldn't, that phrase shouldn't be there. If you read the whole context of the conversation, I think that is extra words that don't belong in the sentence. So I just was thinking that those corrections should be made. How do you want that last sentence to read, Scott? Let me see where it starts. Chair Rizzi requested planner Hillbrands or the township engineer look at the way that cul-de-sac was built to see if the curbing of the east cul-de-sac is adequate to hold the water running down the hill, and if it is indeed what they approved, as the lip doesn't seem to be enough. So I just wanted to strike out where it says at the south end of the cul-de-sac, that part should be omitted. There's nothing going on the south end of the cul-de-sac. So, yeah, so those were my items. And if nobody else has any comments or corrections, I'd entertain a motion to approve with said corrections.
I'll make the motion to approve with the said corrections.
Thank you, Member Katzma. Yes. And thank you, Member Rappin, for the support. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, moving right along. We have Article 7. Acknowledge visitors and those wishing to speak. Comments are limited to 5 minutes. If any of our large contestants here in the audience, large group tonight, would like to speak to really any item, you may step up and speak now. State your name and address. If you're joining us online this evening, you can contact us by raising your hand electronically or dialing is it *9? *9 to be connected to us. And I am assuming we don't have any takers as of yet. So we will move right along. Let the record reflect that Member Merlin has joined us, and we will move on to Article 9, which is case number 21-3629 for recommendation to the Township Board for a PUD ordinance amendment for a car wash and coffee location where the former Pizza Hut is. I won't say too much more so that Brian has something to tell us.
Great, thanks. So yeah, the planning commission awarded preliminary approval of the site plan after a public hearing at our July 19 meeting. So now the next step is for the staff to write the actual PUD amendments and then bring that back before you for a final recommendation. There's been a revision to the site plan since that meeting. The applicants asked that the square footage of the drive-up coffee shop be increased from 550 square feet to 664 square feet. So that's reflected in the revised site plan that's included in your packet. The township engineer reviewed that and updated the reference letter just to reference that revised site plan. And then we don't believe that that increased building size will have a significant impact on the project. We just wanted to make sure that we have that in front of you today, so we have the correct site plan going forward to the township board. The applicant did also submit the required maintenance agreements and signage plans. And I have a note there about one thing they were needing, but they did send a revised plan just on Friday. So that plan does have all the required signage that we were looking for. So they should be good to go there. There was 2 minor changes of the PUD amendments I wanted to mention here looking through it. One's just grammar on that first page. The purpose paragraph, that first sentence should read, the project occupies approximately 15.3 acres of land that formerly was the site of a legal non-conforming industrial operation, as well as a previously existing Pizza Hut restaurant. Just mention there that was instead of the is, and that there was a previous Pizza Hut. And one other change here under the signage, so going all the way to the back, that third paragraph for the signage, letter A, setback at least 80 feet from the edge of the pavement of 28th Street. That's how Culver's and Macatawa signs currently are. They're 80 feet from the edge of the pavement, not the right of way. So we want to make sure we reflect that here in this latest amendment. So then, yeah, the PUD ordinance has been reviewed by the applicants, and I believe it reflects your decision from the July 19th meeting. So if you agree with that, you should forward a positive recommendation to the Township Board for approval of the PUD amendment and the site plan. And then the Township Board will hold an additional public hearing for final approval.
Thank you, Brian. I know I have a question, but I'm gonna let the members of our committee go first. Anybody wish to speak? Member Merlin?
I have a few comments actually on the ordinance. None of them substantive with the possible exception of one thing. These ordinances are, this ordinance is an amendment of an ordinance that is also an amendment of an ordinance. And as a consequence, those of us trying to read it today are left defined terms that were defined back in 2005, for example, are now flowing into our document in ways we don't understand, not seeing the 2005 original ordinance. And that makes some things in it hard to follow and understand. Let me give you, for example, some items. For example, in section 4, it says one standalone bank identified as building F. And you would ask yourself, where is it identified as building F? Because it isn't certainly identified in any of our documents as a building F. So perhaps doing something as easy as one standalone bank.
Well, can I interrupt you right there for 1 second? Brian, how would you identify that as building F? What is that do you know what that is in reference to?
Yeah, that's one of the previous site plans where it identified those buildings along 28th Street. And it is mentioned later, yeah, in section 9, it lists all the buildings there. And so it'll show building F, but I think like you see on the next one there, D, it shows building E, Culvers in parentheses. We could easily put building F, Macatawa Bank in parentheses to make it a little more clear of what building that's referring to.
In section 9?
In section 9, it lists all of the, you'll have to look in the existing amendment because this just shows the existing ordinance, because this just shows the amendments. But the existing ordinance lists all the buildings.
I see.
So when these amendments get put in, it'll list all the buildings.
But you have to go back and forth between the two.
Well, once we revise it, it'll all be on one document, but looking at it tonight,
Oh,
So
so when you revise this, are you gonna make it into,
we do. Yep, we put the amendments into this new document, so it's one.
so it's one standalone?
Yes.
Oh, that actually helps me a great deal. That's just an example. A couple of things I would raise then. First is having the joy of spending significant amounts of time with Mr. Moxley. It is difficult to find out or to define what is a site plan. So if you're going to ask for the original site plan for our document, for our issue here, what would you be looking for? And how would you find it? And therefore, I would like to propose, because I think in talking to Brian, that the 7 pages, I think they are, of maps or of charts here at the end,
Mhm.
or not at the end, but between the two ordinances, is the site plan. But the site plan is labeled preliminary development plan. And what I'm trying to do here is help the developer as well as us to really understand, to be able to look for something that says approved final site plan. So it had a stamp that said approved final site plan. And here they had a definition in the ordinance that said site plan or the site group or whatever are the 7 pages attached here to with the
So
approved on them.
I think I understand where you're going with this, Member Merlin. Brian, how is this? So this is more procedural, I think, than obviously having to do with this particular case. But this site plan would, let's say that we recommend it to the township board, and the township board approves this PUD amendment. Okay, how does this site plan and these amendments get filed so that in 2 years down the road, Member Merlin has a question or someone else about the former pizza Hut property? How do they go about finding that information? How is that?
Sure.
How is that filed?
Yeah. So the PUD amendments here, those will be, the applicant is required to record those with the county. So they do get recorded with the county register of deeds. And then the site plan, we do at least mention that, in the amendments here, we refer to the date on it. You'll see there's a number of revisions. And so this is the revision from 8/11/2021. And so we refer to that specific date that this is a site plan. And I think we can add I believe we have, an approved stamp that we can put on there from the planning zoning department, if that would make things clearer then in the future.
To some of us, older, less, some of the dates on some of these maps, you have to be a whole lot younger than Mr. Moxley or I am to be able to read.
You can defend
A
yourself there.
magnifying glass.
So if they, if this were to say in site
Okay.
plan are the 7 pages with the stamp approved on them, then I think that's just something that going forward would be a lot easier for everyone involved.
Okay.
But that actually, and that's just a suggestion
Right.
for those of us who trying to recreate what is the approved site plan at times.
Let me ask you this. Do you have a lot more? Do you have many more suggestions
Nope.
or generalized comments? Or do you have
Couple
things that are more
generalized. And
specific to this PUD?
I have a couple that are specific to this PUD.
Okay, then proceed.
The next thing I would like to do is I would be this developer is so good that we have problems with guardrails on the top of retaining walls. We've had that idea.
I've heard something about that before. Yes, familiar with that topic.
Well, if you look at this development, which has an underground stormwater retention system,
Yes, yeah.
it in fact agrees on that underwater storm system that due to the design of the detention basin, the developer shall be responsible to place guardrails around the entire perimeter of the basin. That's in the earlier ordinance. And I personally congratulate these developers for putting guardrails underground when we can't have some of our developers put them on the surface. That was substantive. That was not substantive. That was actually just an interesting quirk of how these ordinances came together. Now let me get to the substantive part.
Please.
I think that was excellent.
I don't even know where you found that.
Well,
Just
I'm
let's not
a
go down
lawyer,
that
I
rabbit
read-
hole. Let's just go on with the.
I've never seen anyone put guardrails around an underground detention basin, but that's okay. I've never seen an underground detention basin.
Yeah.
Now,
Very costly.
thank you, Member Moxley. You and I have a similar sense of humor, maybe developed over sitting in that room so long. The one substantive concern I have is the provision we asked to be put in with regard to if the entity that the coffee shop is not in fact successful. And that if it is not successful and the building ends up vacant, then it would be torn down. And then the question was how long? The developer asked for 18 months. I might have liked 12, but 18 is fine with me. But the question is vacant.
I had this exact thought. I know exactly where you're going with this.
I would have thought we would have wanted, if there is not a commercial enterprise operating it from that building for 18 months, then it gets torn down.
The problem is that and I could be mistaken here, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but if the coffee shop, let's say, were to fail in 8 months,
Right.
okay, and somebody decided to open a lemonade stand, okay, and try selling lemonade, they would have to come back and have the PUD amended.
Because it says drive up coffee shop,
Exactly. So it can't be a drive-up lemonade stand.
which is actually, I thought was quite limiting, but
Well, the PUD is very specific. I mean,
Agree.
you get some flexibility, but you have to stay within the guardrails. No pun intended. So so in thinking about what you're saying, I started to think about this exact scenario, that what if the coffee shop is vacant, but then there's a guy in there who's actually selling coffee. I don't know, hypothetically, let's say he's selling it online. He's not selling. So there's one guy goes there once a week and he ships some coffee to, you know, his friends in Ohio or something. So they don't have to tear the building down. I realize that's a really far-fetched angle here, but I guess the point is, do you feel, Brian, that this is written in a way that the staff is satisfied that they can follow through on what you're trying to do? I mean, is there a workaround if this thing,
Well,
you know, how do you define vacant? I guess?
Well, I guess my question would be, what would the commission's feelings be? My major issue is I don't want an eyesore there. That is just lying vacant,
Sure.
deteriorates, and is on one of our major streets. And so if it is maintained in a way that is aesthetically consistent with
Mhm.
the site, I'm actually okay with that if they use it to store supplies for Tommy's car wash. But if it's stored, if it's a storage area, then it's an accessory building, not a.
Correct. Would it make more sense, because I think I see where you're going with this, would it make more sense for the ordinance to be written the way it is, but then also add the line that says, in the event that the shop is vacant for 18 months, the applicant could come to the planning commission and ask for a 12-month extension? That instead of having to raise the building after 18 months, they could come in and say, hey, look, you know, the building's vacant, but we got another guy that's coming in. He's going to start selling coffee in 3 months. Could you give us some time here so we can kind of get that arranged? You know,
I
or
have
we're
no
going to put
problem
an
with that.
application to change it to a lemonade stand, but, you know, give some flexibility so that, you know, then we could look at them and say, well, you know, you've been keeping up on the maintenance of the building. That'd be fine. We'll give you 8 months or whatever, you know, unless they're granted an extension, I guess is what I would say. But that gives them an opportunity to kind of pick up and say, okay, wait a minute here. We got this building. We're not selling any coffee, you know, but we got this guy over here who's interested in selling sandwiches. We need more time. We don't want to tear it down tomorrow. I think that from my perspective as a citizen and owning a business, I would like to have that flexibility. And if it's maintained well, I would think we would say, sure, if the place is falling apart, you know, I think we'd probably be like, nah, you had 18 months. I think it's time to move on. It's just a thought.
I am perfectly content with that. I want these gentlemen to have as much chance to be successful with that coffee shop as possible. But I just don't want it to sit there and deteriorate.
I do too, and I don't even drink coffee.
Neither. I am nourished by the law.
Okay. All right. So,
Wasn't the idea, I mean, we kind of stepped down already, right? Granting this part of it.
okay.
Right. And so now what you guys are basically suggesting, as I'm hearing it, is we're just going to kind of skip over that whole part and just kind of keep giving them extensions. And it's just going to be this new lot that they can keep coming back for and just keep this thing going. And I'm balancing this between, I also want them to succeed. Right. But we stepped down, we kind of agreed to giving them a chance to do this. And so now all of a sudden it's an accessory building, or now it's something else. And I guess it just kind of goes a little bit further than what I felt comfortable with in approving this part of it, because the lot's already small. We went back and forth for quite a while. And now all of a sudden we're at this point where it's like, let's just keep having them come for extensions and keep doing this. And I'm thinking the next person who comes in is going to be like, well, I want that same thing. Let's do 18 months and then let's just keep these extension going.
I would stop you for a moment and just say that could not become an accessory building without the PUD being rewritten, being amended, because it is a coffee shop, it's not an accessory building. So I understand where, remember Merlin saying, the car wash could store wax in there. But no, they couldn't technically, because, I mean, somebody would have to see them doing that and report it, but the way the system works, but it's not approved for that use, so it couldn't be used for that. It could be used to store coffee. My knowledge, don't use it to wash cars, but I understand your argument that, hey, look, we're already giving them 18 months. Why are we giving them a provision to ask for an extension? It was just a suggestion. I can go either way on this. So
One question, even if it's drafted the way it is,
Mhm.
they could come in and ask for an extension,
they certainly
which
could.
would amend the,
I guess I would think they could. I don't know. What's your take on that?
You'd probably have to amend they could
Right.
amend the PUD to allow for more time. It wouldn't just be a one meeting
Right.
extension.
So
It
they
would have
couldn't
to-
come in on month 17
Yeah.
and ask for an
yes.
extension. There wouldn't be enough time, probably. They would need to foresee that,
Yeah.
4 or 5 months in advance.
And I don't
So
know if
we
you,
move at the speed of efficient government here.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys want to make any,
I was going to
Comments
invite them
or
up to make a
any
comment in a
mention
moment. I
of
just
it,
wanted us to finish
to have your
harping on
figured
you a
out.
second first. So, does anybody else
Sure.
have any other? Yes.
Just on top of this, I think I'd be maybe a little bit more okay with some of this stuff. If the building kind of stays the same, or if they want to kind of change that, I think part of what I'm nervous is the coffee shop now. And then all of a sudden it's going to be, well, we can maybe get a tight fast food, Taco Bell. It might be a dumb example. Taco Bell is a drive-through only. I know there's one down the road, but just something narrow. Yeah, we just need 400 extra square feet. We just need a sign, and starting to see that piece going in. And I'm sure they'd have to do the same thing of coming back in. But let's just say this is 4 years from now. Half the people aren't on the board. They don't quite know what the conversations were. That's where I'm getting a little concerned. We kind of stepped out, and then in 4 years, all of a sudden this just starts to be this thing.
Well, having sat here for, I don't know, 6 years, I can certainly relate to exactly what you're saying. That, somebody new sits down in these chairs, and all of a sudden that, I don't know, what is a 460 square foot coffee shop or something. We're throwing out a hypothetical number here because I don't know off the top of my head. Somebody comes in and they want to sell lemonade, and it takes a lot of space to store those peels. So they need 600 square feet. They want to expand. I can relate to that because we've had some cases like that. So I hear where you're coming from. Any other comments? Member Rappin?
I would agree. This captures the sentiment of what we discussed several meetings ago. And this is not written a tablet that can't be changed. So that's my comment.
Understood. Anyone else? Okay. No other questions of staff? All right. Thank you, Brian. Does the applicant wish to join in the conversation? Do you wish to add anything? I'm assuming one of you is the applicant. All right. If you could give your name and address for the record, please.
Absolutely. I'm Bob Morse. I'm the applicant, and I have Jim Morgan, our land planner, here tonight. So
Thank you.
as far as adding, we're comfortable with the way it's written.
Okay.
And so we appreciate, the comments and the feedback. With the investment that we're making in this site, we're gonna make sure the whole property looks great. That's just the way we do business. I know a lot of people stand up here and probably say that, but if you look at some of our other locations and what we've done in the community in West Michigan, that's really important for us. So we're going to make sure this whole site looks great. So.
All right. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
Just a quick question. Is there a note on one of the civil plans that talks about a guardrail around the underground storage? Is that
actually, it's in
It's-
section 9
okay?
of the ordinance that, as it is written right now, is part of this ordinance.
Okay.
I raised that actually in humor, of course.
No,
But
understand.
given that water has been such an it's been,
I remember Merlin, I hate to, can you tell me where this is? Because I, obviously, if we have a mistake of that magnitude in the draft, I think we should correct it.
So you're saying
It's
it's
in
not
the
on the plan,
existing-
it's in the narrative?
It's in the
actually-
existing PUD ordinance, section 13 utilities. So that part's not being amended, so it wasn't included.
Okay,
This
so
was
that's
from
not in our
2000.
packet.
No,
It
well,
is.
it is.
Oh, it
It's-
is?
it's the second
existing
set of
PUD.
ordinance. It's a second ordinance. You have tonight's ordinance, then you have
Mm-hmm.
some maps or site plans, and then you have the ordinance that it is amending,
Right.
which leaves in place significant portions of that ordinance.
So that would still be in place. It's referring to an old plan from, says it was amended in 2007. So at that time, there was going to be a stormwater pond actually put in place, and that would have needed the guardrail. That
be-
plan didn't come through, so there is no
But it
above
is
ground
Okay.
detention.
currently
pond.
left in the existing ordinance
Yep.
as drafted. It's section 13B. And it is just trying to make page 8,
Of the second set?
last sentence of section 13B.
Yeah. Right. I don't see that.
Are you in the ordinance of 17? 10, 11, 17?
Oh, I'm in the one of 2007.
No, the other ordinance we
Oh,
have,
I see it. Okay, so, yep, here it is, here it is. Yep, okay.
and I thought it was wonderful. But
Well, okay, reading this now, I see in the context of the way
see it.
Brian's referencing it, this is not necessarily for the car wash retention area. It would be for
heavens no,
the building behind it.
but
or
it's
next
because
door. Okay,
this was drafted as an amendment
Mhm.
to an earlier, and it left some things in and took some things
Yeah.
out.
it's a good joke. I liked it. That was good humor.
It was
Okay.
trying to add a little levity to tonight's
I
meeting.
hear you. I think we've got a lot. Anything else, guys?
No.
Thank you very much.
Now, just one question actually for Brian on that. When you put this together at the end, you can deal with something like that.
Well, I think that still stands for the other detention area in
That
the
would be-
PUD.
The existing sections here that I don't list in my amendments stay as is. I wouldn't be applying this to their underground detention, but this wording would stay as is with that note, it's amended in 2007. So the new amendments get added to the
Yeah,
existing.
but Brian, as a legal matter, in the document we are voting on and approving, it requires at least some detention ponds. And it doesn't say other than those approved tonight. It's there as a requirement. And that's where the problem of trying to mix old and new, as I have tried over 40 years at times to do, becomes an issue.
So you're basically implying that section B should say that there should be a reference point there saying that underground detention basins are not subject to the need of guardrails?
Well, that would certainly solve it.
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
It is just this, and to that point, actually, let me point out one other one, which substantively is of concern to me because of this way of these things are drafted. If you go to,
Start with a page number.
let us go to the latest one. Oh, yes, here it is. Permitted uses, section 6. Right, section 6E. Drive-up window service for the restaurant shall be limited to building E, Culver's, and the drive-up coffee shop. This use will be reviewed through the special land use procedures of the township. The use will only be permitted provided that the applicant can demonstrate to the township's satisfaction that the users, put an S on there, of the drive-up window will be low-impact users that will not result in creating any traffic problems with the rest of the development. The drive-up window and its infrastructure shall only be constructed after the approval of the special use. My understanding is that in fact, we have approved everything now. And these gentlemen do not have to come for some future special use approval before they can start building. This would say contrary to that. Now, that gets us into a policy issue of whether, I think as of tonight, with our approval and recommendation, I guess, going to the board, if the board so agrees and approves, that they have completed all of their upfront approvals. Now they have to comply with the zoning laws, that they build what they build and our ordinance and the like. But they don't have to come back before us for a special use permit or go before the planning director for a special use permit. They have it. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah, that's part of the PUD process, is getting that approval. I did ask Director Peterson about that, since he was there when these amendments were made. The kind of goal of that paragraph was, initially it was giving Culver's that approval, specifically only Culver's. So they were getting that special use to have that drive-through. And so the idea was that if Pizza Hut 2 years later wanted to have a drive-through, they would have to go through that special use permit to get it or make a PUD amendment. So now we're adding the coffee shop, also allowing them to have that drive up. And that is part of this approval process. They don't need to get another approval once this is done.
I understand. Again, this is more in reference to the other buildings within the PUD.
But
They
it
could
does.
add, in order to add a drive-through, or drive-up window, they would have to come in for a special use permit.
Yeah, the ones that are not included here. So
Okay.
besides Culver's and the coffee shop.
So what we should say here is that something to the effect that this use in the coffee shop has been approved. The special use is approved. So that there will not be this use will be reviewed through the special use procedures of the township. And the drive-up window and any of its infrastructure shall only be constructed after the approval of the special use. We've done that. So there are a myriad there are a plethora of ways in which this could be solved grammatically quite easily.
You could strike the last sentence.
You could strike the last sentence, or you could leave it in case some other building is going to be built in the future somewhere else on this PUD, and simply say that with respect to the coffee shop, this special use has been approved.
But it already specifies the drive-up window services for the restaurants shall be limited to building E Culver's and the drive-up coffee shop. So if the building in the back decides it wants to build a drive-up window, that's not specified as a permitted use.
Oh, no,
The retail office can't have one. The bank, I guess the bank can, but the no, the bank can't. The bank doesn't have a drive-up window. They don't get that. It's not listed. So they would then have to return.
So then we could simply eliminate everything after coffee shop, because there will be no review to the special land use procedure of the township.
Right. It's essentially telling you that when you're reading it, it's telling the reader the process to come in and ask for a special use permit to get a drive-through. Am I wrong? Is anybody else reading it this way? You can see that? How about the other end of the table here? Anybody? You guys are good with the way it is?
So,
Yeah. Okay. I think that I can see where you're coming from, but I also, and I don't want to bring, that's a bad analogy. I understand where you're going with it, Member Merlin, and that in this particular instance, just like the underground guardrails, common sense should prevail, but I do know that there are times when it may not.
Well, actually, I differ significantly from you on that. You're right, common sense does not always prevail, particularly in government, at any level. But this one, in contrast to the underground storage, or the underground basin, which is obviously silly and impossible, this one would say, we can have a drive-up window, but I don't want to see us forcing these gentlemen to come back for a special use permit, which is what it actually says shall be done. Now, so this one is
Important.
this one is within the bounds of common sense.
Brian, how would you like to see this amended from a staff perspective? Not to put you in the hot seat here, but
That's what
I mean, I see where Member Merlin is coming from. I'm not going to say I don't necessarily disagree with the other members of the committee here. I honestly don't think anybody would ever look at this twice.
You could
but-
say in that last sentence there, the drive-up window and any of its infrastructure shall only be constructed after the approval of the special use or the approval of this PUD or approval of this PUD amendment. Because for them, this is being approved during this process for us.
It
If
is.
some new restaurant want to come in, they would have to get a special use or have the PUD amended.
But wouldn't they have had to do that anyway? Because it wasn't listed here that they could have a drive-up window. I mean, it's very specific of who gets a drive-up window
Yeah.
and who doesn't.
And some of it might be if a new restaurant goes in where building E is. It says, Culver's, but I have to look at the permitted use. If something that comes in that's a permitted use, but they also want a drive-through, this is saying
I
they still
see.
need to get a special use
Okay,
permit for it.
okay.
And it might
would
be a,
I see where you're going from. So, I mean, then
What
what if we just had a motion that approved the special use if the PUD is approved for this particular applicant? I mean, what if we just approved the special use now and then it's been approved?
That would
this-
satisfy me, and the minutes would reflect that the special use has been approved. That's fine.
Pending the approval of the PUD amendment by the township board.
Yep.
sure.
Is
That
that
works for me.
okay? I might have done something right today. Any other discussion?
Oh, I could go on, but I won't.
Okay. Would let's see here. This is not slated for public hearing, so I'm just thinking about this. Let's do this. Let's see if there's a motion to recommend this to the township board. And if that passes, then I would entertain a motion by, I'm assuming it'd be by Member Merlin to approve this special use. Does that sound like a good format here? Not to be leading anybody, but
Yes,
I'm
you're leading the idiot, but that's fine. That's me.
myself. Oh,
No.
I'm sorry.
Scott, one other alternative might be to just including in the recommendation of the township board for the PUD ordinance amendment site plan and special use for a drive-through. You could have that as one. If that makes more sense to people.
Does the board have to approve the special use?
When it is a type 2 special use, they do actually. So if someone in a B2 came for a drive-through, that's a use permitted with a special use, and it goes for the planning commission and then the township board.
I can be
Okay.
led that way too. That's
Let's
fine.
do it that way then. Let's do it all as one. I was thinking that. That wasn't, yeah, I guess that would be.
Then I make a motion that we approve the ordinance with,
We're not approving it, we're recommending it. Am I right?
Yes.
We're recommending
Where-
it to the township board.
well, we're approved, is the resolution to recommend this ordinance with the couple of changes that have been already identified both by staff and by us. And together with that approval, also an approval of the special use
for the drive-through.
Yes, under, yes, for the drive-through under section 6E.
Okay. Do we have any support for that motion? Thank you, Member Nordhook. Any discussion?
I guess I want to be perfectly clear on what changes are being made to it. Or taking, I made the few at the beginning.
Those are the
for the-
only ones I'm aware of as far as changes.
And then the special use took care of this other one.
Okay, and we're allowing the underground rails to simply be common sense dictating they're not applicable here.
Should the words above ground detention would have underground rails, should that be added to that? I just left that page.
I'll say from a staff perspective, I don't see it necessary for enforcement, but I'll leave that up to you all.
And I'll add one more.
Oh, boy.
If you go section 9, at the start of section 9, it says paragraphs 4 and 5 will be deleted and replaced with. There is no paragraph 5 in the ordinance. What it should say is paragraph 4 shall be deleted and replaced with what is below and a new paragraph 5 added. And
You lost me on that, but Brian, are you following this?
Paragraph 5 shall be added and paragraph 4 shall be deleted and replaced with.
yes,
Second that.
yeah, that works.
That's the way I number it.
That's what you get for having a corporate lawyer on the commission.
I'm not complaining. There's nothing wrong with being thorough. I'm trying to keep up. Okay, so we have a motion on the table by Member Merlin, supported by Member Nordhook to recommend the PUD to the Township Board with the changes staff highlighted at the beginning of their presentation, as well as some numbering changes just now. And the special use of a drive-through is also approved by the Planning Commission in the recommendations of the Township Board.
Do we approve it or do we recommend it?
I think a special use, I think we approve and then they also approve. Am I correct on that? Ryan?
I haven't actually dealt with a type 2 special use since I've been here. Typically, I'd say the process when it goes to the Township Board, it's your recommendation and their final approval.
So we would recommend for them to approve the special use for the drive-through. And then there was the, where is that, Brad? Where's the, I guess you said page 30 for the, does anybody have the page number of the guardrail thing?
Yes, page of the earlier ordinance, it's page 9
Page 9 of the earlier version. And project.
or 8, let's see, section 13, page 8. 8 B, last sentence. You could simply say due to the design of above ground detention basin, the developer shall be responsible to place guardrails along the entire perimeter of the basin.
I think it should say responsible to place guardrails along the perimeter of any above ground basin.
Works for me.
Can you read that one more time, Scott?
Is that okay? I said that I'll read the sentence. Due to the design of the detention basin, the developer shall be responsible to place guardrails along the entire perimeter of any above ground basin. So we're basically, it says perimeter of the basin. Now we're changing it to say perimeter of above ground basin.
That's fine. If they want to put it below ground, I'm happy to have them do it, but no, that's fine.
Well, I think that clarifies.
Yes. Oh, it actually.
So they don't have to put guardrails under the parking lot. I don't think any of us are actually gonna go look to see if you've done that, but You know,
Yes,
we don't
that,
have to buy guardrail now.
and they were, they already had done beyond what was required with the retaining wall that they have on their site.
Okay.
Where they have a guardrail.
Okay, so page 8 of the, this is page 8 of the
Well, actually, it was,
ordinance number 7 of October 11, 2017. Section B, last
but,
sentence.
Chairman Renzi, what would actually be done is it would be crafted into the amendment tonight.
Right,
That section 13
Yeah.
B of last ordinance is changed as follows.
right.
Yep, I'll include, yes, section 13, paragraph B shall be deleted and replaced with, and I'll just write the whole new paragraph with your change at the end. Is
Okay.
that what we'd like?
Is this, are you good so far here? Or is this as clear as mud for you? We're on the right track, you think? You're comfortable?
I'm comfortable.
Okay, all right, because we're gonna vote. So I just wanted to make sure you didn't have any other, I don't see any flashing red lights in your corner of the court here, so. All right, then we have a motion on the table. I think we've thoroughly discussed. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Thank you very much. I hope that works okay for you guys. Sorry while we deliberate on the technical language here, but thank you for your patience.
Can I make one comment?
Yes, Member Moxley.
Well, I saw Tommy's Car Wash in the Grand Rapids area, maybe a month ago. I'm an architect and it was stunning. I mean, it's really a handsome building. At first, I didn't know what it was, but it's all this glass enclosed dome thing. And I was really kind of blown away by what I saw. So I think this is going to be a great addition to the Cascade area.
Thank you. Thank you. Member Merlin.
Can I just make sure the minutes reflect that in addition to the approval, that we also have requested the staff to identify particularly the approved site plan and that stamp?
Yes, to identify exactly which pages of drawings are included under the title site plan. Is that what we're going for?
Approved site plan, yeah.
Approved site plan. So we want to make sure that it is filed specifically that way.
We could just say something like the approved and stamped site plan dated with the date on there,
But
signifying it has that
if there's
approval stamp
multiple
on it.
pages, we probably should be referencing.
Well,
them as-
so this is a 7-page civil site plan, and that is the approved plan.
And if
Okay.
you put down under site plan, the 7-page approved site plan with the stamp on it, that means those of us looking back can find it and identify exactly what it is. Because when you look back at one of these files, there are a plethora of preliminary this and preliminary that. And this is even on this one, a preliminary plan, which all of a sudden now is the approved plan. 2 years from now, you'd look at it, it was just the preliminary plan. I keep looking for the approved plan. But having identified it particularly by both not quantity of pages and the stamp of approval, that solves it for me.
And that could be something we possibly ask the developer, once it's been approved by the township board, they simply change that wording to final development plan or approved development plan, because I mean, it
Yes.
technically is, right now, it still is preliminary until the township board approves it, so that could be a simple wording change by the applicant that they submit, then that final one is just that one wording change.
And let me,
Maybe we stamp it final approved plan.
We do
as
that
opposed
too,
to
but
having them submit a new one.
Yes, stamped and dated, final. So we know we can go. through
My,
some
my,
of them.
my fear is that if they submit a new one, they could slip something else in there. I'm not saying these guys
Yeah.
would do that, but anybody could.
Sure.
You know,
For
they
the
could,
stamp.
they could slip an elevation change, maybe not on purpose, but anytime they,
yeah, we can just stamp this one.
and I think that is something that beyond this one, that we should, as we consider changes to the zoning ordinance, that we just put in that is a normal process.
Member Nordhook.
And the reason for this is we're going back looking for final approvals and we've got like 15 of them.
Yeah.
Which one's the final? So that's why we want to have the final, red stamped final.
And I've got an email in my file from our town manager, who in the absence of Director Peterson, I'd asked for a copy of the final approved Round Hill site plan. And he said there are so many iterations here, I can't tell you which is the correct final one. That is,
And by the same token, what's to keep a developer from changing a title on a drawing to say final approved plan? I think the only thing that's really gonna fly is when it's stamped by our staff.
right,
Final approved plan.
Should be stamped,
Yes.
initialed, dated.
Yes.
and that
Okay.
one would then go in the clerk's file when it's approved by the Board of Trustees.
Process.
All right. I think we've thoroughly addressed Article 9.
Well, let me raise one other item.
That's Member Merlin.
Just for, because I had a conversation this afternoon with our planner, a very constructive conversation for me anyway. But one of the things that we have to think about and put on our, this may be like new business, since I'm raising it in the wrong time. And it's not at all for action tonight. But let us assume that we approve something like this ordinance. Or like the development on the other side of Thornapple Point on the south side. And that water retention system was designed or was implemented exactly as we approved it. And yet it creates a problem in the future. We cannot be held, I would hope, to having had to foresee every possible event. And they should not then be able to maintain something that is actually built as approved, but still creates a significant problem for a neighbor or for the water of the river. And it really does reflect or become essentially a nuisance to the neighbor. There are also a couple of other legal causes of action that the neighbor has. Shouldn't there be a process where we can step back and say, when something happens that makes it clear that as designed, it will not serve the function it was meant to? Do we have a right to go back in and say, yea, verily, you have to change this in some way? And I cite you in the real world. When I was general counsel of Amway, we had built a retention pond exactly as the Michigan DEQ requested it to be built. Complied fully, but they changed their rules to make them tougher 6 years after we built it. So we had to go back in and rebuild it in the way they wanted it now. Now, we obviously have more money than a homeowners association for a development on Sequoia. But if those curbings and the asphalt don't satisfy the purpose that they were meant to do, which is to catch the stormwater, but the gentleman built it exactly as, or the developer built it exactly as it was approved, the neighbor still is being damaged and continues to be damaged. What is his recourse? And what power do we have to solve a nuisance in our community? At the very least, a nuisance. That is something just to think about in terms of for future use as we consider changes to the enforcement of our
I-
enforcement process, and we will have to deal with as part of the Round Hill Subcommittee.
I see where you're going with this, but biting my lip here. Do you want me to respond to your example of the Sequoia property
No, not right now.
specifically?
No, I just raised it as an issue of. I
Because
can-
your example says that if the cul-de-sac lip or curb is not adequate and the water flows over, then how does the neighbor deal with that? And my response would be that in the actual approval, it says that no water can leave the site. And that's what the second catch basin was for, to route all of the water into the detention that's too high.
Yeah,
So for anybody who listens to this later, just because maybe we approved a low curb on a cul-de-sac does not mean that a neighborhood is going to be needing kayaks to get to the store. Because the second catch basin in theory will catch that water. At the moment, we know it's not functioning appropriately, and staff has asked the appropriate people to look into that. And my understanding is that corrections are in the process of being made. They may have already been made. I haven't gone for 12 days, for the first time in a long time,
But-
decade.
but
But
you
it's been
understand
fun.
the conceptual issue.
I do. I understand the conceptual issue. I do. I just want to make sure that we're not creating other issues with the example by
Okay,
not giving the whole.
I'd forgotten
So-
the mountain drain, the mountain catch basin.
Yes, yes. All right. Well, with that, then we'll move on to Article 10, which happens to be old business. I believe we have a township email address update. This sounds exciting. I can't wait. I'm guessing I'm gonna have to learn a new password. This is. Oh, did I say that out loud?
Not yet. I don't have too much of an update. I did
Okay.
ask Manager Swayze if what that was looking like, and he said that still needs to go in front of the township board because it's a question of what server we're going to be using. I think when we're going to be changing to the cloud-based server.
Right.
And so that still needs to go in front of them, and that's when that will happen. But I didn't want to make sure that it's still on his radar, at least that we were looking for that. So
And therefore, it's on that list you are compiling.
I need to work harder on that. Yeah. I worked on a little bit of that this morning, actually.
Good.
I don't have my post-it note in front of me. Okay.
Can I ask two other things just for status of
Of old business?
Yeah.
Okay, what would those be?
the draft rules of conduct?
I haven't heard anything about that.
we haven't seen anything from legal counsel on that.
But we sent it to legal, or we actually gave it to the lawyer who was here that night.
Yeah,
do
she was
something.
here, and I believe they were working on it, but we haven't heard any update from legal counsel on it.
Would normally go through Director Peterson and Ryan to just nudge them?
That's, I think, would be appropriate to give a nudge, yes. My understanding was that the township has legal counsel working on a lot of things right now, and that was not at the top of the list.
Ah,
So I
I've heard.
think they're working on it. I just don't think it's at the top of the list.
Well, if we just had an expectation of when we could expect it back.
That would be great. If you could just maybe poke them and ask them if this is a, September thing, November
I can
twenty
get a-
twenty-three,
I can give them a
whatever.
nudge for a timeline.
And I
Yeah.
know that at least one of our township council is out of pocket at this point, temporarily, hopefully. And the last item I had, just to keep the old business on a list. In our last discussion tied to the Sequoia property, and you in fact have answered it to some degree. You had said you would investigate and get back to Mr. Byers or
Bly,
Bly.
Mr. Bly. Yeah, I was waiting for an update from Steve before I took my camping trip. I think when that was that I got an update from him, might have been while I was out. Okay, so on August 4, staff basically acknowledged that they had acknowledged that they had been there in July regarding some problems at the site, essentially along the same lines, and that things look pretty good. And they didn't see any issues. And Steve asked them on August 6th, I'm sorry, I misspoke. Staff went back out to the site. Steve asked them to go back out and check it again on July 29, because staff had said that they had already been there and that everything looked good. So Steve told them July 29, please go out and check it again. And then they responded on August 4. And then he forwarded it to the developer on August 6th that they have some things they need to address. So there's a list of items, some outside of what I noticed when I was there, but still items that need to be addressed. So my understanding is that that's being worked on. It's been 10 calendar days. So probably I would think somebody will follow up soon to see if they took care of the items that Steve asked them to address.
And this again from, I think member Moxie and I would concur from reviewing files over the last week, gets into this ongoing sort of enforcement issue or not. I just had, we can discuss that tomorrow at the Round Hill Subcommittee.
Exciting.
But we might want to get back to Mr. Bile and just say it is being followed up on, and here's what's happening, so we can have shared expectations between the township and the landowner who raised the issue, that something is being done, and that in fact it will be corrected before he goes off for the winter. And
I can try to contact him again. This last communication happened when I was out of town, so I haven't been.
you might want to just check with Director Peterson to see if.
Yeah, I can check with him and see if there's been an update, and then stop by Sequoia and update the neighbor. So unless you've had communication with him.
I haven't, I'd like to do a site visit, see what they've done, if they told us that, and then.
Well, let me find out from Director Peterson if he's aware that things have been corrected, and at that point, then maybe you and I can go out there, have a visit. Any other old business that anyone is aware of that should be on my list of old business topics? While we're on the topic of old business? No? That's part of the problem with making that list. Nobody ever has anything. So,
Well, I
but
can go back and
I'm
I
making
will,
lists.
I will find them even before I was a member here, but never you fear.
Okay. All right. Any other business? Any items of other business? I have one, but anybody? Member Merlin?
I just want to explain the survey that hopefully now has been delivered to everyone here.
Briefly.
Yeah, no, I'm going to
Thank you.
explain it briefly. What this comes about is this coming Friday is the first meeting of the strategic planning advisory / steering / whatever committee that is chaired by this supervisor, has two representatives from this commission on it. Vice Chairman or Vice President?
Vice Chairman.
Vice
Nordyke.
Chairman Nordyke and myself. Representing the Planning Commission, there is a representative from the DDA on it, a representative from the Parks Commission or Parks Committee on it. And one other trustee on it, and I think it's 7 or 8 people. The question became, McKenna, which is our township consultant, had created a survey, and it should be a brief survey, this initial survey going to the public, because what we want to do is generate interest at the 50,000 foot level, essentially, for what will become, or 30,000 foot, whatever, of what will become the strategic plan. The initial thought was that they would simply look at the projects. This was in their proposal, that they would look at the projects already on the drawing board for the township and ask the public to reprioritize those. They have moved away from those and have instead asked their survey has questions in it, primarily, most of it revolves around safety on the roads and safety walking near the roads, and congestion. There are also there is at least a noise issue, a parks issue, and a bike facilities issue, but it's largely traffic oriented, which is not really the 50 or 30,000 foot level for all the issues surrounding the township. They asked two questions that they simply asked for a short written response. Those are the questions that I put in number 3 and number 2. I think it would be better if there were a list of possible answers to at least get them into the mindset of thinking about more 30,000 foot level issues. And then with the ability to put others as your mind starts thinking, then you track that with specific demographic information so that you could find out, for example, what people over the age of 60 prioritize versus what people under the age of 60 prioritize, and see if they're different. You can slice the data statistically. When you put in short written answers, you get confirmation bias in how people determine what you said in your short answer and what you were prioritizing or not in that answer. So I'm suggesting for them a new way of doing this. And what I wanted to get is at least the input of, since we in theory are representing this commission in part, though the plan will come back many times for discussion at the commission level, so that they could begin to see the advantages of doing it in a more whole new look, looking broadly at the community, and getting perspectives on answers. My wife, for example, when I asked her the question, one of the questions about the village, how often do you visit the village is the question in their survey. And she said, what village? I know what the DDA defines as a village. Some would say that's easily walkable. For some of us, going from the library to the river to Fowling Warehouse is not a walkable alternative. But so the village is one thing they asked. They asked, what do you think about walking in your neighborhood without defining your neighborhood? Again, making it not a particularly worthwhile question. So what I'm trying to do is begin to impose the discipline of getting slices of demographically, statistically verifiable information, while allowing the people who respond to then at least have in mind some of the topics, and then they can think of whatever else they want to add to that list, and then they prioritize them. Hence, I'd love to in that meeting with saying, here are 7 responses from the Planning Commission, just to give you a flavor. I'll give you the answer. I will hand over to McKenna without attribution as to who they are, the surveys, and let them start seeing what we're answering.
Sure.
To help that process along.
Does anyone else up here have anything they'd like to add or ask on regard to that? I have a comment, but I yield to you first. So I went through your list, and you probably read what I sent, but
I did.
I thought I tried to.
I thought you did great.
Okay, I tried to do what you're essentially asking.
And you
And
actually.
I
went
forwarded
off.
it to everybody and I got a little off track. I went down a couple rabbit holes and
No, no,
but
but you went off, you went down the rabbit holes you thought important.
right. I thought that was the idea kind of.
And that is
because
the idea.
there were some things on there that I could care less about, frankly. And there were some things on some suggested ideas that I thought, I don't think the township needs to pay for that. But there are other things I like the idea of. And so I gave you my input. And I know just from being CC'd on a couple things, I know that you've received at least, I think, one or two other responses.
I must admit, I was a few minutes delayed because it was very pleasant on my deck condo and I fell asleep until my wife called me at 5:07 and said, you got to go.
Okay, well.
So I haven't read those yet.
Okay, well, I would encourage everyone to take a minute and look at that because I think the idea here is good for us to give that input at the beginning of this process. I think it will help shape the process and members Nordyke and member Merlin are, I think they're better prepared if they have some insight of what we're thinking. And if they see, we're not going to see everybody's response, but if they see 7 responses and they can say, wow, all 7 said, they want a speed bump over here, then I didn't ask for a speed bump. I'm just hypothetically throwing that out as an example. Then maybe that helps deliver that message.
And let me also, and one last comment, and then I will shut up. I promise. Don't all clap.
We're
But-
putting in the minutes right now, actually.
What it also does, the goal is to get 1,000 or more responses to this initial survey and really get the input of what the citizens of Cascade want the government to be doing now. Yeah, in essence, blank slate it, not focus on
No,
necessarily completing old projects.
Right.
And then, for example, we can take those 1,000 and then have small group meetings or getting into a nursing home or an assisted living facility because we haven't had enough representation from a demographic that we need representation from, and getting into dialogues where people can actually drill down, not have 100-person meetings where a number of people will feel a little nervous about standing up in front of 100 people to say what they want to say. So it also helps define the process in more ways than just the process of this first survey. So it helps us in a number of ways.
I hear. All right. Member Nordhook.
The one thing I keep hearing is a pedestrian bridge over the Thornapple River on Cascade Road. I've heard about Pain Trail multiple times. I've heard it out there talking with residents, neighbors, business owners. Everybody keeps bringing that up, so I'll put that out there for you.
Answer your survey and you'll be able to prioritize it.
That's on my survey.
It was one of the items I mentioned. I think it was right there along with sewer expansion.
It was on mine as well.
Bike path expansion to the south, I think is important too, because I don't know if you guys on the planning commission have noticed, but there's been a lot of approval for development from 48th Street to the south, and there's no pathway over there. So
It would, I said I would shut up, but I just can't. I'm sorry. I would agree. I think the whole the connection of north and south, we have focused north so long.
right, 36th Street is kind of like a dividing line.
Right. And interestingly, on the map that McKenna put with their survey, we're also including, we have annexed part of Kentwood on this. So that again, it's just, they don't know our township the way
We do.
you folks do, and we all do, that have lived here. And that's why getting this as just representative responses would be fascinating for that meeting.
Point taken. Yes.
When I filled out the questionnaire, it really didn't take more than about 20 minutes. One of the things I added was the need for a pedestrian bridge over I-96 at Burton. I saw a bike rider headed up the hill towards that bridge. I don't think they realize what they're getting into. And it's an older person riding their bike. And I thought, oh man, good luck getting across that bridge without getting hit by a car.
It's narrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that's good. That's where you should voice that and see what happens. I think we've got a lot of bridges that are narrow like that. We got one right next to the rec park, same thing, going up over drive. Not that people bike through there
Oh,
very,
yeah.
very often, but that's, you know, same design. Whitneyville Road, same design. I think, yeah, I think we've got some issues there.
The other thing I mentioned is we have a severe problem with Oriental bittersweet in our parks. And I think it needs to be addressed, especially Burton Park. It's just overwhelming the south end of that park. And it's starting to get pretty strong over at Peace Park too. And I think something needs to be done in an organized fashion to address that issue.
I don't know how to, I don't know how to solve that problem.
Well, and
I think but that's again, that's a good comment to put in on your sheet. I didn't comment about that one.
actually, can I ask one question?
But park maintenance does come up in conversation. After I sent the send button to you, I thought about park maintenance at Tassel Park in my mind, because there's some beds there that I think have been, oh, should I say, they were originally landscaped and now they've been, I think somebody has decided they become natural. And I don't know if that's because staff is lacking the knowledge or if nobody's just paying attention to it, but you know, there's poison ivy over there.
Well, I brought it up only because when you go through Burton Park, the Oriental bittersweet, that invasive species, is literally pulling down trees.
Really?
Winds right around them and pulls them down.
Okay.
And it's going to destroy that park.
well, one of the true benefits of doing this as part of the strategic plan is that when we get the community's input,
Mhm.
then each of the various groups within the staff, each of the departments, within the various commissions, committees, et cetera, of government, one of the things McKenna does very well is that they bring it down to actionable items. So that if people bring up Oriental bittersweet with sufficient frequency, then what building and grounds or whatever it is who maintains those parks, that will become one of their actionable items aligned with the strategic plan, where the people then will be able to say, they heard us, they did something about us. Hey, this is a new way of conducting business in Cascade.
All right. Any other business? Yes. Member
Can
Murray.
I move to adjourn?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
Support.
No, we gotta hold that for 1 minute. Two things of any other business I would like to bring up. First off, tomorrow we have a Round Hill committee meeting in this very spot, I believe at 10 a.m.
10 to noon.
10 to noon is the time of that meeting.
Yes.
And the public is welcome to come. It will probably be even less exciting than the meeting tonight.
It will be more exciting.
Okay, more exciting. Now you've piqued my interest. And then the other item I wish to mention is that related to attendance at the planning commission, at the beginning of the meeting, I think I stated that member Korsnich is, I wasn't sure if she was excused or not. And I'll be honest, I'm still not, but I am about 70% sure that she told me at the last meeting she wouldn't be here this week. But I'm realizing,
I think she did.
and the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is a great spot to bring this up. I'm realizing that my memory is not quite as sharp as maybe it was days gone by. And so I think it would be a good practice for planning commission members to tell me at the meeting, that's great. But, and most of you have done this, but I just want to make it a policy, okay? That moving forward, if you're going to miss a meeting, please send me an email and copy Brian or Steve on the email as well. And then bases are covered so that if I mess up and say that you are gone and not excused, somebody can say, oh, no, I have an email from July 29 that says otherwise. So I looked through my email. I don't see anything right now, but I do believe that she stopped me on the way out and told me. And I'm seeing some other people that think they remember that too. So I'm gonna take that one as both members are excused tonight. But I moving forward, I think it would be a good policy to make sure that there's a written record of that in case I make a mistake. And with that, I would yield to Member Merlin.
Is that your only other?
That was my only other
Okay,
business.
two comments I would make. The first is my daughter, because of my memory
Mhm.
concerns, now has signs that she put laminated in on various spots along the wall before I leave the condo, and it would leave my office that say, did you remember the following 7 things? You might want to actually start considering that, Chairman Rizzi.
Well, I don't want, Member Rappin to go on vacation and feel that he has to laminate something and stick it on the podium here. I think that
That's
might be a
probably
little
right.
extreme,
That
but
may be a little
I mean, it would probably work, but it's probably a little extreme. Any
I
other?
will make a motion to adjourn.
All right, do we have support?
I'll support it again.
Member Casper supports. Member Merlin moves to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Good evening.
I did email.